Okay, after taking a short break for the Thanksgiving holidays, we are back with Platonic Mysticism, and today we're going to have a special guest, Marios Koutsoukos. He has earned his PhD from the University of Liverpool, and got his master's at the Hellenic Open University. He recently, or is about to publish his dissertation, Reforming the Ancient Religion, which is all about the work of Iamblichus and the syncretic aspects of bringing back old religious views, kind of transforming some of the things that we think about Iamblichus on a regular basis. And so I'm super excited because today Marios has agreed to talk to us about the Greek Magical Papyri.
Thank you very much for this lovely introduction. It's a real pleasure to be here. So yes, I've been working on pretty much a lot of Iamblichus and a lot of late antique theurgy, but let's break it down. So Platonism in late antiquity was all about contacting the gods and communicating with the gods via rituals that were supposed, or at least based to a certain degree, to the more ancient Egyptian rituals. Now this collection of scrolls, probably a collection of, let's say, recipes, a grimoire of sorts, coming from the 2nd century BCE to the 4th century CE, depending on its part and recipe, was discovered by this guy called Giovanni d'Anastasio, or Jean d'Anastasie. Actually, he was a Greek. He was called Ioannis Anastasiou. He was from Thessaloniki, a very intriguing figure that served as an ambassador of Sweden in Alexandria, Egypt. So he also marketed antiquities. But in any case, this great collection of magical texts was found. And by finding these temple recipes, which were magical at the same time, because in the Egyptian temple, religious practice and magical practice really weren't a separate thing. When the Egyptian priests performed their religious rites, they actually performed magic as well. And due to the nature of, let's say, Egyptian priesthood, every priest would serve a allotted amount of time in the temple. So whenever they were not serving, they were back to their normal lives with their wives, with their families, but they did have the ritual expertise to create animated statues, that is, statues that are meant to channel the gods or create a suitable abode for the gods, and also create talismans, perform spells, exorcism, and that sort of thing. So let's say the religious expertise of the temple that was used officially in the Egyptian temple also became part of society by those priests who were, let's say, in their sabbatical. Now, of course, the late Platonists did communicate with those priests, because those Egyptian priests, being literate men and men of culture, in the from the Hellenistic period onwards, even in the Roman period, they became very knowledgeable also in Platonic philosophy, and many of them were also philosophers, like Harpocration or other Egyptian priests who were priests and philosophers. So we arrive at Iamblichus, who talks about theurgy and actually talks about how the state religion is no longer miracle working. It's no longer functioning. It doesn't have the punch it used to have. And Iamblichus actually advocates for going back to the roots, going back to a form of religiosity that actually works and can actually invoke the gods and bring them into appearance and have all the benefits for that. Eunapius even tells us a very amusing incident that when Iamblichus was in, I don't remember which city, there was this Egyptian priest and he had invoked Apollo. So a living apparition of Apollo was there and everyone was dazzled. But Iamblichus, being kind of a connoisseur and jaded, he said, yeah, don't worry, this is just the soul of a dead gladiator that he's passing off as Apollo. So he was, at least according to his reputation, because we know very little about his actual biography, he was a man who knew his stuff. And Iamblichus was also very interested in animating statues. He actually had written a book on statues, which unfortunately does not survive. And it's personally my holy grail to be able to either reconstruct it in some sense from Byzantine manuscripts that refer to it, or even, just rely on chance and have it found. But yes, animated statues were a very important part of Neoplatonism. Already we can see a reference to those kind of statues that are created through composite substances in order to become suitable abodes for the powers of the gods. We already see that reference in the Hermetic texts of the Asclepius, although it's mentioned very much in passing, and it's all about separating those statues from the purely decorative ones, and they are designated as ensouled or breathing or living statues. So these are not merely statues of the gods, they're not representations, they are the closest you can have to a living god in your own home. And when I say home, this practice was taken absolutely 100% copied from the Egyptian temple, where it was the home of the gods. But then in late antiquity, you have this practice where the home of the gods can be also your home, if you know the right rituals and the right techniques to make them, let's say, a suitable abode. And again, in the Greek Magical Papyri, that's also where the plot thickens. The Greek Magical Papyri do offer a certain amount of recipes for creating such statues for various intents and purposes. So, for instance, in the big papyrus of the big magical papyrus of Paris, we find this recipe for an animated statue of a weird three-headed god.
Yeah.
Of course.
I believe so. I remember quite vividly. So I hosted a conference called Vital Platonism way back in June, and got to be part of the happy audience that saw your three-headed pantheos. So that you actually reconstructed one of the recipes, so to speak, for animating a statue with various different materials. Could you tell us about it? Show us, walk us through the reasoning why you did it, what pitfalls and obstacles you had, like trying to reconstruct something from antiquity for today. So thank you. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you very much. This Vital Platonism conference in Delphi was a pure pleasure to attend. And actually, I will show you a picture. A picture, yeah, is worth 1,000 words. Let me remove the thing here slowly. I'm not doing it for dramatic effect. So, yeah, I'll deconstruct the thing for you. So, yes, this is basically from the fourth magical papyrus. It's an animated statue of a three-headed god. He's actually called the Aion of the benevolent Aion, the conqueror of hope. And let's break it apart because this is a bit. So at the top, according to the instructions of the Greek Magical Papyri, you have to put a wreath of olive on top of this little temple, this little shrine that you built. So this is just an olive wreath that I put on top. Let's put this aside. Now, as you may see here, it is placed in a, let's say, temple made of cedar, actually made of, the instructions say cedar. Of course, it's quite difficult to get cedar, good quality cedar. Actually, let me take this out for you. I bought this from a store that sold lining for cigar boxes. And there are many examples in ancient Egyptian art of little miniature temples. Now you can see I even put some little stars in there just to emulate Egyptian designs. But yeah, it's just a box. It could have been much better, but I'm really bad at woodworking. But yeah, this is the temple made of cedar. At least it is aromatic cedar. So I did stick to the instructions of the formula and we'll solve the formula. And of course, the statue must be based on let me show you. Yeah, on a base of iron. So I got this little base of iron. This is the base. And this here would be the god. This nameless god, this conquering hope, this beneficent Aion, this great demon Iao. So according to the inscription, it has to be, let me see, do we have a good lighting? Should I get more lighting? Yeah. So it's a three-headed deity. It has the head of an ibis. The main head is that of a falcon. This is Osiris. So let me see. And the third head, it's a cynocephalus. So it's either a baboon or a dog. And it should hold a staff in its hands. I chose to, because the formula didn't specify, so I chose to use the Wad scepter. This is the scepter of magical power of Seth. That's why it has a jackal's head on it. So this is a magical scepter. And it must have a hollow in its chest. Where is it? Yeah, there it is, a hollow in its chest, where in that hollow, you basically place a piece of papyrus written in mirror ink. Mirror ink is ink made of mirror. So you have this little papyrus with the words of power. It's barbarous words, words that really make no meaning, but they are meant to have some magical influence and purpose. For instance, this one says Viho Kour So Marta Vihovi Surfeo, and so on and so forth. We don't want to invoke anything here. So basically, we've read our Lovecraft, we know how that goes. Yeah. So basically, you take this little piece of papyrus, you put it right here in its chest, and then you also stuff a heart made of magnetite stone. So you see, the idea is that this statue brings benevolence, not benevolence, also brings good fortune and great prosperity to any place where it is placed. So basically, the idea is you have this made of beeswax. So this statue is made of beeswax. It's quite easy to get beeswax, at least here in Greece. I don't know what happens in other countries, but here it's quite a natural product. You place this heart of magnetite also with the piece of papyrus, and then place it on this base of iron. So probably there is a connection between, let's say, the iron base. So I'm guessing the whole idea is that this statue magnetizes, in a sense, a good fortune and goodwill. And then you have to place it in the little temple. So basically, you enshrine a god in its own temple made of cedar. You crown it with an olive leaf, and you have to make an invocation and a ritual to it that lasts the whole night. Now, the ritual is all about sacrificing the milk of a black cow. So I basically used milk in a little libation over the statue. And it also called for the sacrifice of the head of a white falcon, or a white-headed falcon's head, lefkos onagros. Now, this is tricky. This is the tricky part. Obviously, when we're talking about magic, we're never talking about big-scale animal sacrifice, because, if anything, magic was designed, even in late antiquity, for domestic use. So there is no way a 4th century person would have enough fuel to fully burn holocaustos, to make a holocaust, to burn fully a whole animal or even a falcon's head. So it takes quite a lot of burning. And in the Greek Magical Papyri, we also find lists and registers of equivalents. So, for instance, the seed of a lion is the seed of a man. So you don't have to go finding seeds of lions or anything. Or the blood of an eagle is cinnabar. So there is this coded language that things that appear weird in let's say, ingredients, like the eye of a newt, from Shakespeare. It's definitely something else. It's a method to codify stuff. So the white-headed falcon for me was this little flower here. This is the dried form. This is called hierax. It's called a falcon. Actually, let me share my screen and show you this little flower, which is, again, very common in the whole of Mediterranean. So let me share my screen here, and I'll give you the lay of the land. So, wiper music for that. Splendid music for that. There we go.
Nice little interlude, right?
yeah, exactly. But this is basically the flower. This is a very humble, very common flower. You even find it in pavements in Athens, but it is called an hierax. So it's basically called a falcon for some reason. Now, I didn't have a correspondence in the Greek Magical Papyri to be entirely sure that this could be what I was looking for, but I said, okay, this is the best I can do. So I did have to use my imagination in that. Perhaps some collaboration with a paleobotanist researcher would help more. Now, here I have also some examples, now that I put on my screen sharing, of 3-headed deities found in magical gems from late antiquity. Here you see we have a 3-headed deity, this sort of pantheos combining 3 different divine powers. Here you can see he has the head of a cynocephalus or Anubis. So, because the dog and the baboon are often confused or interchangeable in Egyptian and Greco-Egyptian iconography. Here, this probably is a rooster, and this is definitely a horned deity, like Pan or Ammon, Zeus, or something like that. More importantly, here in this particular magical gem, we not only find the exact thing I decided to reconstruct, You see the three-headed deity with the falcon in the middle, the ibis on the left, and the cynocephalus or Anubis on the right. Also, you see, it also has four wings, right? Because two pairs of wings give the deity the power to fly both upwards in the higher realm and downwards into the nether realm. So traditionally, if you see a deity with four wings, it means it can rule from heaven to earth or even below the earth and communicate. And also, the particular recipe from the Greek Magical Papyri I made called for the statue to be robed like Osiris, meaning robed in linen bandages. Now, this example here, we can guess basically that the statue is wearing like a Roman or Greek style toga or clothing. But in this other gem, where we find another three-headed deity with four wings as well. The art is much less sophisticated, but you can see definitely the crisscross lines that designate the linen bandages of Osiris. So definitely, again, we have this three-headed god. Much it's a less good iconography, but if you can see the bottom line, it says Iao, the great god Iao, just as this deity is called, and it's even framed in a little Roman type of frame, like a Roman tablet. That's also interesting. And on the back, on the reverse side, it also has a trophy, a battle trophy. Oh, interesting point I forgot. The writing here on the back side of this gem is actually the verba barbara, the magical word that exists in the papyrus that is in the heart of this statue. So basically, we have this exact formula of the PGM, of the Greek Magical Papyri that I replicated. We have it here in magic gem form. And actually, fun fact, after the conference at Delphi, I brought this statue back here, and its heart of magnetite had shattered, because as we talked about, I took it out, we presented, but then it needs to be reconsecrated because now it's kind of out of batteries, as it were. So yeah, for some reason, this little heart here, this was the heart. I shaped it like an Egyptian heart amulet, got shattered. So now I have this. This is again a piece of magnetite rock that I'm going to just, I trace the outline of a heart. I'm going to carve it and then place it there and reconsecrate this thing. Do a whole night's ritual with burning this and that. But yeah, that was the whole idea, to actually see the statue. And one last point I have to make. This particular ritual said it had like a little footnote from the person who wrote it back in the day that said, "Do this and you shall be amazed." So open the doors of the temple after this night-long ritual and you shall be amazed. And it is true that I was amazed at the outcome of the second day. I mean, I approached it purely from the scientific viewpoint, saying, okay, you say that I'm going to be amazed. I'm open to being amazed, so I'm going to put in the effort. I'm going to try to be as authentic as possible. Amaze me, magician of centuries past. But yeah, that's I'm none the wiser for it.
No, it's
Absolutely.
amazing. I mean, obviously, so much dedication and hard work went into doing this. A respect for the text, right? Understanding the hermeneutic aspect of it. That so many people want to take these magical texts literally, forgetting that there's hundreds of years of pedagogical traditions of interpretation and playfulness. You even use the word imagination and the importance of the imagination, because I imagine that every magician or every person who's tried to animate statues, I think about Iamblichus in your book, right? That part of reconstructing and reforming or recreating a renaissance of spirituality is to have the powerful imagination that allows you to revisit antiquity and to birth it anew, right? And so that maybe it wasn't the right flower, right? But the way that you imagined and their dedication and you're saying yes to your solution are part of that formula of animating this statue. Because here, let me ask that question, and I'm throwing this out to Gareth as well. Like, when we're thinking about constructing icons or eidolons, I always think about the Timaeus and the demiurge. And one of the things that he's also described as doing is creating a home, right? Perfect in all sorts of ways. So it's kind of a temple or seat, as it's actually literally described, like so that the demiurge, the god, makes a home for us, right? And that we become images, so to speak, of the divine. So that there's a kind of mirroring, right? This activity of creating a divine home or statue so that you can actually reflect back to the divine your own divinity. So, because I think about all of the statements in the Greek Magical Papyri about I am you and you are me, my name is yours and yours is mine, this kind of microcosm, macrocosm. And so, anyways, that's a long-winded way of wanting to get round to this idea of the the power of making these things, whether it be in text or in our homes, whether it be pagan or Christian, as a kind of reflection of our own divinity.
Yes, yes. Thank you very much for pointing this out. Actually, when I was making this thing, first I made a rough sketch, but again, it's again according to the specifications, 30 centimeters long. So my first reaction was like, "Whoa!" I was kind of taken back in awe after I saw the actual form because I made a god. But again, I want to say I was surprised at this reaction in me because I just took beeswax. I knew it's basically almost like child's play, like making your little Play-Doh project at school, one could say from an outside perspective. But me, even from a, let's say, purely detached perspective, or at least more clinical perspective, I was still quite amazed at this divine presence, at this. I made the facsimile of a god. I made the cell of a god, as it were. And for me, that was a bit awe-inspiring, and instilled in me a sense of duty. Now that I have to take care of this thing and do the ritual fully proper, not cut corners, do really put in the time. And this sort of, let's say, dedication to a creative imagination, shall we say, to put it in the Jungian term of the sense, it does have effect. It does change your life because at least in the Greek Magical Papyri, in order to do anything, let alone this, you have to fast for 3 days, concentrate all your focus, put in the work. I mean, even if you don't have the skill, find everything, find all the ingredients, the cedar, the olive. So it gets a kind of a consuming, energy consuming project, but at the same time, very uplifting because you're doing it for someone, not for yourself. You're not doing it for your own egotistical purposes. It does connect you with the divine, with the higher things in life. So
And
you're absolutely spot on.
And what's interesting is that you're not doing it for yourself. Because I'm thinking, I'm translating this for myself into when I'm creating art, right? Like when I'm doing a painting or I'm writing a story or a poem or whatever it might be, and it's a lot of work, right? It's a lot of like, you have to do it and you have to keep trying and you make mistakes and you go back. And so there's a kind of duty or compulsion to make whatever it is that you're making. And it's not an exterior one either. It's strange, like this kind of interior, but not yourself, need to give reverence and respect to these strange windows to the something other, right? And I think about lots of great works of art, or to bring in Christianity, like when you walk into a church and you see the kind of stained glass that just reminds you that this place is holy, or when you stand before like a Da Vinci or something along these lines, right? That how did they put their soul in it to where hundreds of years later, we cannot help but see them as ensouled or animated. Okay, so I'm gonna just stand back and ask a general question. What is an icon? What is a symbol? What are these things? And why have we, as various different cultures, reimagined the importance of these things over and over again? Yeah, go ahead.
Right. Should we give this to Gareth? Gareth is
I,
the
Yeah,
expert here. Yeah.
I can come in there because I mean, and I think this links in a sense to the idea of practice. I mean, there's the theurgic dimension and that beautiful description you give to Marios of the labor of transformation of matter into a kind of spiritual process of inner transformation. And I was thinking there in relation to the notion of the iconic of a quotation by an Orthodox theologian called Paul Evdokimov, who said, "The best icon of God is man." So there's this idea that because what you're describing is about this notion of amazement that you refer to is about the undergoing of a kind of self-transformation through the transformation of material things. And so in a sense, it's a bridge between the transcendental world and the material world, the invisible world and the visible world. The work of art, the object here becomes a kind of portal or a bridge between those realities, and it synthesizes those realities in a way. And the image of the shrine or the temple, and in relation to this, I was thinking of of 1 Corinthians, which is something we've referred to before in our conversations on some of these topics. Do you not know that you are God's temple and that God's Spirit dwells in you? For God's temple is holy, and that temple you are. So there is this sense that, the sense of enshrining or developing something of this nature, which in some way brings forth divinity into a material representation, is also part of a sense of inner transformation. So not only the object, but you are transcended beyond your mere materiality, as it were. And I think that's what Danny's alluding to there as well, in terms of what we feel when we are moved in some way by art. And I'm thinking here also of if we frame this within elements of ritual and Christianity, aspects of the liturgy, of the Eucharist. We think of how these are processes of both material and spiritual transformation.
Yeah, that was one of the questions I was going to ask was, when I asked Marios to talk about the Greek Magical Papyri, part of me wanted to see if we could tease out the difference between magic, ritual, and religion, and even spirituality, or mysticism, of course, right? So that here, I know that many of the Greek magical papyri emphasize, the mystic or the mustos or the initiate, and the importance of these things as initiatory practices of getting in. And then I also think about, oikos and home and making a home, and you're birthing a god. And so you become a kind of divine parent to a god, but only because you're a kind of child. And so that there's a kind of psychoanalytic, return to the family and one's true family beyond the body, more than the body. And again, I'm rambling with my questions, but I also just love how reinforce, as Gareth was saying, the relationship between opposing extremes, right? When we make things, we take elements and we do something alchemical to them and make them beautiful, right? Make dirt beautiful, right? Make because that's what paint and fibers and all these things are. They have the potential to be beautiful if we just have eyes to see. So yeah, sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, this is actually spot on, and exactly this is the beauty of transforming matter and actually returning it to its original source and its original potential. Because what in Platonism we call natural forces, physikes, dynamics, these are the occult properties of all the elements. So beeswax is, in this case, probably the flesh of a god. The basis of iron gives solidity. The heart of magnetite is the heart that pulls. So basically, what you have here is an initiatory microcosm that how the divine works. So through practice, even if you take it, let's say, superstitiously, you still have this lesson of how divine powers and divine forces work. Now, for your question, which was very interesting, the difference between magic and religion and mysticism, I would say magic is all about results. It's a form of spiritual technology, and it's mainly focused on results. Whether you understand the context that this is the microcosm of making the flesh of a god, really doesn't matter to magic. Does it get results? And in the Greek Magical Papyri, we do have little footnotes. This has been tried 7 times, and the magicians were very results oriented. Now, religion is more about maintaining the balance of the society, of the whole of the world. So we offer sacrifices to the gods, we get a good crop. And mysticism is all about the ascent of the soul. And again, you find instances of that even in the Greek Magical Papyri, just like in Christianity, in the Eucharist. You have this upkeeping of the world through the Eucharist, through the enactment of the sacrifice of Jesus Christ, and partaking in this ritual. Theophagy, to be honest. It's eating the god. We could take it back to the pyramidal text. But again, mysticism is all about elevating one's soul and union with the divine. It's the more theurgic side. If we go to Clement of Alexandria, who is 100% theurgically and mystical orientated. Whereas magic is pure, let's say, bread and butter of spiritual technology. That's my take.
And so that's why magic was mostly domestic, private. That's also why. So yeah, tell me about, because I think about the Orphics and Plato not hating Orphism, but these Orphic peddlers of books, right, that would go around and sell these mysteries texts. And by the way, I think your god reminds me of Phanes, and so having roots that go further than we can imagine, but that there are Egyptian magoi, right, or magicians who would sell amulets and things like this because they worked, right, and people would just buy them, and we see this today still, right? People, like every other thing that you scroll past is some new magical product. So how do we distinguish between the peddler of magic and the magician that is bringing us to a form of initiation and to our rightful home, so to speak?
I would say if somebody asks for money, probably they are a peddler. I would be very simple about it. So if somebody's performing a ritual for monetary gain, yeah, probably they're peddlers. And if they're advertising it. So I would think also in antiquity it was the same as it is today. If somebody is trying to sell you magical services and advertise it openly, probably they're not in it for the ascension or for the theurgic element of it. If they're doing it, pro bono on their own in a small closed circle, then yeah, probably they're more interested in the outcome, even if they're interested in the practical result for their own self. But yeah, I would say when money and this sort of exchange enters into the equation, yeah, that's where you have the peddler. Although there's always the danger of the superstitious person, the person who just is doing basically folk magic. He's a cunning person in the old English sense.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I don't believe we've ever talked about money, and it's very strange. I just realized that. And so, because I'm thinking about what happens though, because you think about how poor some of these communities were. You think about, temples are caving because people aren't sacrificing as much. And so the economics behind these cultures in which these things emerge, typically, people are poor and they're ready to do just about anything. And you perform a spell for good tuke, for good luck, because you needed money. And so there's a real sense in which maybe it's possible the ones that seem like they're peddling need money, or buying and selling these things, that they're doing it because of real need. And so maybe even today we see, your witchy women on, the TikTok selling their new amulet, and maybe it's because we live in times where people are desperate. They need the money. It's a hardship, right? And so is it possible not to think of them as, being peddlers in the same sense?
Yeah, now that you mentioned, I have to agree because for me, from let's say even the more practical aspect, you need three things in magic. A, you need necessity. The ritual has to be necessary. You don't do magic because you have a curiosity. You have to be pressed by necessity. Then you need ritual purity. And the third is timing, to have the right astrological timing. So these three things in that order is what it makes sense. So yes, I would say that exchanging money. I mean, sometimes if it forces the necessity, both of the practitioner and the receiver, the client, in a sense, it may influence the effect. Personally, for me, I would, if let's say I was receiving money, right? If I was selling this, I would feel kind of
Ready?
oppressed. I mean, I wouldn't focus so much power, but still, even me doing it for myself, I am moved by necessity. It is the dire press of necessity that is the first pressure point right there. So yes, I can totally understand. Let's say somebody selling those magical services and all that. It really depends on the person, all
Yeah,
right?
I just think about great artists, who have made these amazing works of art, and they were pressed by necessity, right? They needed a Medici, they needed somebody to support them, and I think about some of the other artists that we're talking to at Palinode, where they're just making these beautiful icons. Pablo, you remember? He's got those beautiful icons, and of course, like we live in a world that's not allowing for artists and creatives to create. And so there is a sense in which, we have to, in some ways, support these amazing works of art and this dedication.
Absolutely agree. I absolutely agree. Exactly. If anything, as a as an artist myself, yeah, I totally get that and I feel that. Yeah. And actually, this whole construction here, it wasn't cheap. I mean, getting the cedar tree and all that. It was an investment of money, and this investment of money for me, let's say me being the client, did increase the importance of it because I tried to get the best quality materials as close to the original and all that, and investing so much time in hunting them down and paying for them. Yes, it did have an effect on. I think it was a factor that contributed to the whole experience being more elevated because the more sweat, blood, and tears you put into it, the better results you get. With anything, to be honest, not just with magic, with art in general, because magic is an art. It's a form of art, just a science. It's an art.
Well, just like, the alchemical, the artistic, the poetic, that all of them, we used to I recognize how they all hung together in an activity of creation because you said you needed to have a necessity, you needed to have, oh, what was the next one?
Ritual purity.
Ritual
Yes.
purity, so that working on your own soul, and then yeah, the oh, I don't know, it was just there. The third one,
Third one, timing, the
timing.
astrological timing to be the
All
right
of
time. Yeah.
all of that requires an understanding of philosophy, astrology. To make a good work of art, you have to have an understanding of depth and mathematics, and so long and the short of it is that yeah, I'm just wondering what Gareth is thinking first off, and
Well,
then
I've been contemplating a synthesis of your first question actually around taking a few steps back to this idea of how can we distinguish between true and false images, so to speak, and it's a kind of Platonic dilemma we've grappled with in different ways. Uh, and I suppose it also falls under the distinction between the iconoclastic and the iconodualistic, I suppose. We can see this in the history of Byzantium around icons, for example. But this is probably something we need to spend a whole nother hour talking about. But I wanted to mention someone who has synthesized these things in very interesting and also very mysterious ways. There's a book on Christian Hermeticism called Meditation called Meditations on the Tarot. And what's interesting is that the first letter, because it's a series of it's a epistolary kind of formation, the book, and the first letter is based on the card of the magician, and the author says that this is the most significant of the the tarot to frame the meaning of all others. And yeah, I've just been looking through it now, just looking at some of the notes I made when I read it. And there's an interesting quote here. Maybe I won't read the whole thing, but it sort of encapsulates part of what we were just talking about there. And it's the closing remark of the letter. He says, to perceive and to know, to try and to be able to, are all different things. There are mirages above as there are mirages below. You only know that which is verified by the agreement of all forms of experience in its totality. The senses, moral experience, psychic experience, the collective experience of other seekers for the truth, and finally the experience of those whose knowing merits the title of wisdom and whose striving has been crowned by the title of saint. And then he goes on and he says, carry these things out strictly before and after each flight into the region beyond the domain of work and effort. If you do this, you will be a sage and a mage. If you do not do this, you will only be a charlatan. So there's this kind of, because I guess that's the distinction you're making, Marios, in a sense as well, isn't it, between the kind of the peddler or the charlatan and the true seeker of wisdom, in a sense. And for some reason, because one of the themes of this letter is silence, and I was thinking this in respect of how do we ask the magician or the true spiritual seeker that they are telling the truth? And in a sense, I was thinking of the passage in Plotinus where we ask nature, and nature says, I'm silent, things just fall from my contemplation. And so there's this sense that we are, the truth is silent in that sense. And so this brings it back to some aspect of the importance of practice, and we've covered lots of different ideas around this, I think, like initiation and certain kinds of
You just
processes.
reminded me of
Yeah.
like divine names and secret names, right? That the
Exactly, yeah.
would have access to the divine name, and that would be the great secret, and that's how you knew you were part of your brotherhood or sisterhood or community, is that you knew the name, were initiated into it, but you had to keep silence with regards to everything else.
But there's also an interesting point here, isn't there, about the understanding of there being esoteric and exoteric readings of texts, and of those of being initiated or not. But interestingly, Marios, as you point out, this a kind of magic, or this kind of practice is a domestic one as well. So it's not one that takes place, let's say, only in the temple, as it were. It's one that's mirrored, perhaps in some other form, within the home. And of course, we see this in many other kind of faiths as well, whether it's the shrine at home, or even having a crucifix up on your wall, or as I have, icons. So these are kind of living presences, aren't they? Spiritual presences, in a sense, which bring those spaces into our immediate and daily life.
So I think it's clear that we need to have Marios back on for another episode. But I want to end with a question that follows from what Gareth says. So ever since you made this beautiful icon, do you walk by it with a sense of like, I shouldn't be naked in front of it, or like, does it have its own ability to see turn you into an object, as Sartre would say? Does it have its own subjectivity?
Yes, absolutely. For me, that's the amazing part. That ever since it's like a little god, it's like a little pet. In a sense, it's a divine ancient Tamagotchi, if I may. So I do, yeah, because it is alive, it is there, and we do talk, and I actually do a little bit of a libation to it. It's even like you have a dog and you feel okay, let's take it out for a walk. Yeah. So absolutely, it is alive. It's no longer a piece of wax. It's no longer a piece of wax. It's not an art project. It's more of a presence. somebody ill-disposed would say, I made an imaginary friend. But
Oh,
yeah, if you read your Jung, you know, you know it's not just that.